everybody, Derek Sheridan from Rust Belt Basketball Coaches Network. Thank you so much for getting this Courtcast from us. I think you're going to find it most interesting. Had a great conversation with Minnesota West Community and Technical College's new men's coach, Dan Tharp. Our conversation revolved around everything from family life as a coach to being a coaching vagabond to his 5-out offense, where he's all the stops he's had along the way, he's added a little bit from every head coach he's worked for now. And now in his second program, where he's the head coach, he really has a unique system in regards to his 5-out offense. We talked about how he recruits, his facilities, the whole gamut. Hey, if you would like to be part of our subscription list for our free weekly newsletter named in Ted's honor, our email address is listed here. And if you'd also like a list of all of our products from Rust Belt Basketball Coaches Network, shoot us an email at rbcn at DERSHE6.dreamhosters.com, and I'll get that information out to you right away. Hey, enjoy, folks. God bless. Hey, Derek Sheridan from Rust Belt Basketball Coaches Network. We're stoked tonight. We've got Minnesota West Technical Community College's new coach, Dan Tharp, who's been all over the place in his career. And he's going to spend some time with us tonight talking about his new endeavor and where he's been in the past and his journey. And I've been looking forward to this. Coach Tharp and I have been talking since the summer months, since we met on Facebook. And I'm looking forward to this. So, Coach, go ahead, and the show's all yours.
Awesome. Well, appreciate that. Appreciate you having me on. So my name's Dan Tharp. I'm currently the head coach at Minnesota West. We're a Division III junior college in Worthington, Minnesota, kind of down in the southwest corner of the state here, near Iowa and South Dakota area. Been on this job for a couple months now, so we're just getting rolling through fall workouts. A little bit of kind of going backwards for me. Last year, I spent the year at another junior college here in Minnesota, same exact conference. It was a Minnesota North College, Vermillion, which is up in Ely, Minnesota, kind of the exact opposite corner of the state. There I took over a 0-win team, and we got us 12-13 last year, so it was a good first year as a head coach. Before that, I spent a year at a Division I junior college in Tennessee, Dyersburg State, where we won the conference regular season that year. Spent 4 years as the associate head coach at Mount Marty University, which is kind of down in this area. It's about an hour and a half from here. It's an NAIA school. It was another complete rebuild job. I seem to like those rebuild jobs. They took a 63 game losing streak in conference and finally got to a conference championship game by the end. Before that, I was the director of operations at North Carolina Central, made an NCAA tournament there. Spent a year at Clarendon College, a Division I junior college in West Texas, a year at Baton Rouge Community College down there in Louisiana, Division I junior college. I did a year at University of Jamestown, was the JV coach, varsity assistant, kind of my first real coaching job in North Dakota. I was graduate assistant at University of South Dakota as they made their Division I move, and spent a couple years at North Dakota State University as a manager. Got lucky and went to an NCAA tournament there too. So yeah, it's been a long, winding journey, but it's good to be a head coach. There's a lot of things you learn when you take that step over one seat.
Yeah. So you were with the Bison?
Yeah, I was at the Bison. We went to the tournament in 2009, the first year eligibility, and I was a freshman. I walked in and got lucky. Don't get me wrong. I rebounded the ball, but I get a ring from it, so I love it.
Yeah, they got a heck of a football team this year.
Yeah, last year they finally fell off. I mean, it'd been, of course, the 3 years I was there, no national titles. The year I left, they won like 6 in a row. I'm like, really?
Right.
My sophomore year, I think they won like 6 games. They were bad. But yeah, they've got that, and they put money into it there. I would not be shocked if they're not long for that, Mountain West or something like that, because
right
between them and South Dakota State, they take their football serious up there.
Right. Tell us about where you grew up and any noteworthy experiences you had, and just go from there.
Yeah, so I grew up in a small town. I call it northern Minnesota. It's more like north central. Little town called Walker, Minnesota. It's a tourist town on a big lake. About 1,000 people. I grew up outside of town on 40 acres in the woods, running around being a fool. So I played 4 sports growing up. Played football. Was not very good at it, but it kept me in shape for basketball. which is what I really loved. I played baseball, which was actually probably my best sport. And then we were a little low on golf numbers for a couple years, so I golfed a couple tournaments there as well. Um, yeah, I was like I said, I was a better baseball player. I had a little interest baseball wise at the Division III level, but now I use it as a teaching moment to my junior college kids because I didn't like class that much back then. And at the Division III level, especially in Minnesota, they're not cheap. So those options were kind of out. Basketball wise, I could have played in the conference I played in now, but seeing as I was a 5'8" shooter, I kind of saw the writing on the wall that probably the 4-year level wasn't going to be it for me. I could probably play in this league, but that was about my limits. And so yeah, I got into coaching instead and went and became a manager at North Dakota State. And like I said, I got lucky and went to an NCAA tournament. And at the end of the day, I think I made the right choice.
Yeah, I'd say so. So, would you be familiar with Solid Springs, Wisconsin?
I've heard of it. I guess I don't know right where it's at though.
Okay. Yeah, the area you were describing where you grew up, I had a mental picture of Solid Springs. Is what it sounded like, anyway.
Okay. Yeah,
So you
just little
played.
towns run around. They're all kind of the same at the end of the day.
Oh, it's God's country up there. I love it.
Oh,
All the lakes and beaches, and
yep.
winter's a little bit different animal, but
Yeah, it's a little cold in the winter up there.
yeah. And I think one of the things I've tried my hardest to communicate to people, the basketball, whether it be high school or small college or even junior college up in that part of the country, is unreal
Oh, it's
because
good.
it's really good. When you're dealing with, you know, middle of to late October, and you've already got 25 inches of snow on the ground.
There ain't a lot else to do around there.
Right.
No, it's yeah, you get into some pockets and there's some really good basketball around northern Minnesota. Cass Lake and Red Lake, Minnesota, two native reservations. For years they've been churning out college players. And these are small 1A schools that
Mm-hmm.
I mean that's the lowest level in Minnesota. And they've put out a lot of Division II. I mean, Cass Lake just had another kid commit to Bemidji State at Division II. They churn out athletes and yeah, you find those pockets and it can get really good really quick.
Yeah, we played Bemidji State when I was in Ironwood.
Okay.
Yeah, played a lot of schools in that area. What's the big junior college in Rainy River? Is it Rainy River CC?
Yeah, they're part of that Minnesota North now. It's a real small school at this. They only have like 60 students up there anymore. But yeah, they were really good at basketball. They've got a really good coach up there. It was always funny coaching against him because I coached his kids 10 years ago in AAU ball when he was living in North Dakota. But he gets kids up there, and there's not a lot to do in international falls, but God, they play hard for him.
Yeah, I can remember stepping off the Greyhound and wanting to turn around and go back up. As soon as my
Yeah,
feet hit the pavement, every ounce of sweat or moisture on my body just froze. It was
yeah.
I've never been that cold
The
ever.
day we went up there last year was the coldest day of the year. I'm like, really, I got to be in the northernmost point of the continental U.S., staring at Canada, and it's -30 out.
Right.
I got kids from Louisiana and all over the world, and they wasn't ready for that one.
No, I certainly wasn't. But man, you're right. They certainly play. There's a Mount Scenario. Is that in Wisconsin or Minnesota?
I believe that's in Wisconsin.
Yeah, boy, they play too. They've got a great, at least they did back then. I have a problem. I don't see myself as middle 50s. I still think of myself as a young, strapping lad. So when I think about those things, I forget that it was a long, long time ago. So looking back at your high school days, what are some takeaways you have now from your high school coaches that you still implement?
Yeah, it's funny because for me that my dad was a high school. He was a girls assistant while I was playing. And as soon as my younger brother finished, he was done. I always tell people like my dad never coached above. He was the highest he was ever a head coach was of a ninth grade girls team. But I said you give him a team and you give me one even, and he'll beat me every day. I don't even worry about that. So he was a girls assistant, and the guys he worked for, the head coach and the assistant, were actually my baseball coaches. So I took a lot more from them because I'm still in contact with those guys. Unfortunately, the head coach is struggling a little bit with cancer right now, but he's got 700 wins on the girls' side. In Minnesota, he's one of the all-time winningest in girls basketball. So I try to stay in contact with those guys, but they're a real calming force for me. It was nice. I got back to a high school game in my high school for the first time since 2008 last year, because it's just hard to get up there and find a time. And they played a home tournament, and one of those guys had taken over the boys' side, and so it was nice to kind of go back and have those conversations with them. But it's funny, you pick up mannerisms and things. I was in Sweden this past summer coaching a basketball camp, and Coach Lean he's the girls coach, and he does this goofy thing with his when he points at you. He doesn't just point with his pointer finger, he points with his pinky finger as well. And of course, they bring a photographer in and they catch a picture of me. And what am I doing? I don't even know I do it. Here I'm doing the Jim Lean point. And my dad sees it and he's like, "Good Lord, you picked that up from that man, didn't you?" I said, don't even know I do it. But he hasn't been my coach since 2008 for baseball, and here it is in 2023, and I'm doing something just goofy like that. But no, those guys are some of the best. Like I said, he's got 700 wins. That doesn't come by accident in a small town. Because as small towns go, the talent dips and comes and goes. But he's been consistent there for 30 years, and I'm still in touch with those guys if I need a little bit of advice how to handle somebody, because they've seen it all. I know I'm college, they're high school, but they've seen every type of kid you can imagine. So it's nice to have those guys to lean on.
Yeah, exactly. And plus 700 wins. Holy goodness. I mean, that's over the
Yeah,
top.
it's wild. I mean, and like I said, he's battling. He was I think he was in Vietnam and got that Agent Orange
Right.
cancer. So he's got about 3 people helping him in town right now. But the guy's at every game still. Like, he doesn't do practice as much anymore. But I was told he was going to retire 10 years ago, and he likes to fish and coach basketball. All he likes to do, and so he's in a good spot to do that in northern
Right.
Minnesota. But that's what he does. He fishes in the summer and then coaches his basketball team in the winter. And I think he might pass on that basketball court, because I think he'd be happy doing it that way, because that's just, he doesn't know anything else.
Yeah, after 700 wins, he probably has forgotten what it's like to buy a beer.
He's forgotten more about basketball than I've ever known. I told him that last summer when I saw him, when I got up there and took him out for dinner, because I hadn't seen him in a year or so. And I was
Right.
like, I think I know what I'm doing sometimes, and you've forgotten more than I could ever even think I know.
That's great. Having a relationship like that is priceless. So tell us about your university experiences and some of the takeaways you've gathered over the years, and from whom you took those, whether they're thoughts or premises or even X's and O's, teaching points,
Yeah,
any of those type of things.
yeah, it's nice. I've always said, you take something from everybody you work for, whether it's good or bad. And I've worked for like 10 different head coaches, so I can kind of take a little bit from here and there. But like when I was at North Dakota State, Saul Phillips, who's now the head coach at Northern State, he was out there at Ohio for a while. Saw that guys play, but he was a big defensive guy, and that's kind of the way I've adapted in my game a little bit. But you go up and down and you look at our staff, it was wild. This is 15 years ago, and Dave Richmond was the associate head coach. He's now the head coach at North Dakota State. And Jason Kemp was our next assistant. He's an assistant at the University of Minnesota right now. Will Ryan was our other assistant. Well, he was at the University of Green Bay last year as the head coach. And Dan Weiss was our director of operations. He was the head coach at University of Minnesota Crookston. So it's a heck of a staff, when you have guys that are just at different points of their career that eventually become 5 head coaches, and you just get to sit there and watch practice every day. I go to South Dakota and I fall into a GA job. I'm not even graduated yet. Their GA leaves and they need somebody and anybody to step in, and I'm working camp, and they walk up and say, "What are you going to do?" And I take it back to Saul Phillips, and he's like, "Then what are you still doing here? I don't have a job for you in a year. Go." So it's pretty cool to have that. But Coach Boots wins 500 games at South Dakota. He's one of the all-time greats, and he's the exact opposite. Saul Phillips was a straight man-to-man guy. Coach Boots ran a 2-3 matchup zone 98% of the time. Maybe go. But
So going back to the
I lost 5:30 now, right? I lost for 5:30 now, right?
going back to your what you were just talking about, what was one of those guys, Bo Ryan's son?
yeah, Will is Bo Ryan's son. So
Right.
yeah, he was an assistant there at North Dakota State, then followed Saul out to Ohio. and then took the Wheeling Jesuit job. I think it's just Wheeling now. I think it's a public school. They kind of moved it over. And yeah, then he was the head coach out there at Green Bay for a year or 2 years, I believe he was out there. So yeah, it was kind of cool when you can go, you want to work camp at Wisconsin. That's not a real hard thing to do. And our ops guy at the time, Dan Weiss, was Bo Ryan's first D1 recruit ever at Milwaukee.
Okay.
And then Saul Phillips, who was the head coach, he called himself the human victory cigar when those Platteville teams were really good because he was the end of the bench guy. Like if Saul got to go in the game, that meant Platteville was up 30.
Right.
And during his time there, they were up 30 a lot. So yeah, they won a couple national titles for when he was playing there. But he was a better player than me, so who am I to talk? But yeah, no, Bo. I got to meet Bo a couple times and go out there and learn, and it was a cool experience, that's for sure.
Did you ever get to when Coach Ryan was at Wisconsin? Did you ever get to go to any of the games at Wisconsin?
No, they played Wisconsin the year before I got there. So, once you're in your season, you're going and it's just where, you do what you can do. But they played Wisconsin the year before I got there. And so, yeah, unfortunately, I didn't get to go to one of those. I did get to go to a North Carolina game when I lived down in North Carolina. So that was pretty cool. I wanted to go to the Duke game, but those tickets get a little expensive.
Yeah. Yeah, he was
But
always
Coach Williams is he's one of the greatest people you'll ever meet too, and I didn't even work for him, but I got to know those guys pretty well in UNC. And one day I walked in the office and didn't say hello. And Coach Williams on the phone, and I didn't want to bother him. I didn't even wave at him as I walked by, and he came down. Sean May was their video guy at the time. And so Sean and I kind of got to be friends for that year. And here comes Coach Williams storming down the door, down the hall, mad that I didn't wave hello to him. I'm like, my bad, Coach, you were on the phone. I'm not trying to.
Right. Yeah.
But that's how and I'm just a 27-year-old ops guy at the school down the road. But that's how Coach Williams is one of the best people to ever walk on this earth. He's mad at me because I didn't come say hi to him.
Right.
Nobody, but that's a good people right there.
Right. Yeah, I was always fascinated by the amount of success Platteville had over the years. They were kind of like the basketball version of Mount Union.
Yeah. No, Bo won a lot of games there. Yeah, that was a lot of wins, that's for sure.
Did you learn a lot about the swing offense?
We didn't run the swing. So Saul is a motion guy. So we ran a couple different versions of the motion. So I've seen some swing stuff, but no, we really didn't run any swing. We didn't even look at it. And don't get me wrong, like my freshman year, we had, I believe at the time when they left school, they were the number 1, the number 2, and the number 7 all-time leading scorers in school history. And so you just let those guys go play.
Right. Yeah.
But yeah, we weren't trying to get in their way. He was just begging because Tim Miles had been there right beforehand. I missed Miles by a little bit. I've met Miles a couple times, and Miles was not really a defensive coach at that point in his career. And so Saul's job was like, okay, I know you guys can score, but can we stop anybody at any point in our day? And we'll be pretty good. And anyway, I guess we got enough stops to make it happen.
Yeah. When did you know you wanted to pursue a career in basketball coaching?
Early. I wasn't the best player. I could shoot that thing. Senior year, I was in the top 10 in Minnesota in 3-point percentage. But wasn't a good athlete. I kind of came in and threw it in the basket was all I could really do. But my dad was a coach. And so I was kind of around the game a ton growing up. But I knew early that I wanted to do it. I started coaching youth teams at a pretty young age. All my teammates, when we finished out as seniors, they kind of went and played a couple tournaments. I decided I was done playing. I didn't need that for validation any longer. So I started taking some youth teams on and taking them to tournaments. And, I'll never forget the first time you sit there as a head coach and, these are 6th graders and it's youth. And one of those kids turned out to be a really good player. I mean, he turned into a good Division III player in Wisconsin. And my old man sits down next to me and I go, why are you here? Like, you want to be your own man and I can do this. And he goes, just trust me on this one. And then your eyes are wide as soon as the ball goes up. And he explains, you go from watching 5 guys because you trust your teammates to now you got to watch 10.
Right.
Because you don't know what your kids are going to do and you definitely don't know what their kids are going to do. So no, I kind of knew early. And that was a big part point why I became a manager and didn't continue playing into the college level. I knew I wanted to coach, and I treated practice probably more like a class than some of my actual classes were. But I was just trying to soak up and learn everything I could, and spending your summers working the camp circuit and running around. So no, I kind of knew that was my path pretty early, and here we are all these years later, still chasing it.
What were your favorite camps that you worked?
I really love the Wisconsin camps. Those ones were a lot of fun. Creighton put on some really good ones. The ones that were different was Wisconsin Eau Claire always used to have just a different setup. They'd bring you in for a week. You as a coach then got to run a practice for an hour and a half every day. You did whatever you want to do. It wasn't all stations and everything. So that was different. Then you split up your teams and you got to coach, and it kind of gave you more of a, you know, freedom as those coach as you could do. But no, I if there was a coach, if there was a camp in the Midwest, I probably worked it. I think this summer after my sophomore year, I did 14,000 miles on my little broke down Mitsubishi Galant. Like eight oil changes later in 2 months. So I like I said, if there was a camp, I probably worked it at a 4 year at the big 4 years especially. But I loved it. I don't love running around like that anymore. I still work my camps and get around, but not quite that heavy.
Who was in all those camps that you worked, who did you feel like ran the best camp overall?
I would say probably Eau Claire. That he had been doing it for so long, and his number Terry Gibbons was there for all those years. He had just had it set up for so long, it ran really smooth, and a lot of those kids, like he had. I didn't even know my first camp there. The Ellenson kid that goes to Marquette and then goes to the Pistons for a while. I got him as a sixth grader. It was just really what those were just. They were so smooth to run. Creighton ran just a different setup. They had a lot of games. And so kids they love the games and things like that. So those are some of the better ones that I really enjoyed. Wisconsin was always different because a lot of times what could fit into my thing was day camp, but they give you a dorm room. So the kids are gone by 5 and you get to actually enjoy the night rather than go until 9 o'clock. So but no, there wasn't really any that were terribly run. If anything, it was probably the North Dakota State ones where I was like semi in charge of them as a student manager. I'm screwing stuff up, I'm sure, but no, my goal next summer is probably get out to 1 or 2 again, just because I do enjoy some of those. But yeah, I don't ever think I want to do 14,000 miles in 2 months
Sure.
again.
Did you ever get to meet Don Meyer?
I didn't. Never crossed paths. I know, his coaching tree is so wide, especially in this area. I've met a lot of guys that played for him, but I never crossed paths with Coach Meyer himself.
Yeah, he was extremely instrumental on my career. And one of my closest friends, Adam Paytai, got to coach with him. He was actually on Coach Meyer's staff at David Lipscomb.
Okay.
Yeah, so he's got some great stories.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah, those guys like Sundance Wicks, who's at Wisconsin Green Bay now.
Yeah.
So Sonny and I ran into each other more than a few times, and Sonny's got a ton of stories, and you're like, oh, good Lord, because Sonny was a good player for him too, and yeah, he's shared. He always loves to share those stories.
So Sundance Wicks played for Coach Meyer.
Yeah, he played at Northern State for Coach Meyer.
Didn't know that.
Yep. So he came back up and was the assistant at Northern State, and then got bumped to the associate, and then got that because he's from Wyoming originally, and then got the job at Wyoming, and now that's led to him out at Green Bay.
Okay, well, I didn't know that. Learn something every day. What are your professional goals? I mean, when you look down the barrel of your career, what are your ultimate goals?
I think I'd like to be an NAI head coach. I spent 5 years at NAI, 4 at one school, and I really do like that level. I think there's a lot of advantages to it. Growing up in Minnesota, we don't have NAI, so I really didn't understand what it was. I mean, we have at the time we had the one D1 and a bunch of D2s and a ton of D3s, and then our D3 JUCO league, and so you kind of had an idea about those ones. But being at NAI, you cross paths with so many different kids and on so many different plans for their lives themselves. Your high end kids, you can give good scholarships to, and they're trying to chase that professional dream. But you'll have kids on your same varsity team that yeah, they're good at basketball and they're good enough to play for you, but they also picked that school because of the academic program. And then JV, it can be a headache at the college level. There's no question about it, but you get to run across some of those kids too that, they're trying to chase that dream and they just need some development and some time. And again, there's other kids that, hey, the school has my program. I'm never going to make varsity, but I'm happy to be here because this is a good spot for me. And, um, I Division 1 wise, I've been there. It's a whole nother level. It's a whole nother world. It's a lot of stress. It's not a lot of days off. Um, if the right situation came about for a Division 1 job again, I'd absolutely jump at it. Don't get me wrong. But I've learned to make sure that when you take those opportunities, it's the right opportunity with the right people.
Right. Yeah, you hit the nail on the head. I'm an NAIA guy. I played at Huntington,
Okay. Yep.
Northeast
Yeah, I
Indiana.
love that level.
Yep.
It's that'd be the ultimate goal, I think, is just to kind of be there. And I thought I've been close a couple times in interview and things like that, but that level just it's so well rounded, I think. Um, you just get a little bit of everything
Right.
from the kids in the community. And yeah, I really, really like that level.
So we were talking before we started the presentation. You don't have any really ties. I mean, you said you don't care where you go. You could go anywhere in this country and work.
Yeah, no, I'm a free bird. My wife and I have been married just over a year now, so she's always kind of been around the Sioux Falls, South Dakota area. And last year we were about 8 hours away. And we weren't looking to leave. We were okay up there. But this job here at Minnesota West kind of presented itself to me. There's a family around here. They go, their last name's Schilling. And Cody Schilling, I worked for him. He's my age. He was my boss at Mount Marty. He's now an assistant at Augustana in Sioux Falls. But he was a Division 2 All-American. His younger brother was a Division 2 All-American, and his older brother was an NAI All-American at Northwestern. Coming out of a town of 200 people, these 6'5" guys. I mean, don't ask me how they breed them there. It's different in Ellsworth, Minnesota, clearly. But they have really connections around this area, and they know the athletic department here. And I get a call one day and said, "Hey, would you be interested?" And with this being an hour away from my wife's family, it made a lot of sense. But no, we're okay going anywhere. My wife will be happy. She just told me, "Hey, try to go south, not north anymore. Give me some warmer weather." So, no, like I said, I'm okay going anywhere. This was the first time in my life I made a move for somebody other than myself. Happens when you get married, I guess. But no, I'm happy wherever I can coach basketball. Because that's probably the next big goal for me is I'd like to. I'm in this coaching profession. I know I'm never going to get rich, and I'm okay with that. But just to make enough money where I can just focus on basketball and just coach basketball. So wherever that opportunity presents itself, will be one that I'll be excited for.
So out of all the moves you've made in your young career, what was your favorite spot in America, or even Sweden?
Citywide. Sweden was amazing. That was my first time overseas, being able to work a camp over there. That's what I guess get lucky when you recruit a kid and his dad runs the biggest camp in Sweden, and they fly over there. City wise, I love that triangle area in North Carolina, that Durham, Raleigh area. It reminded me a lot of the Midwest, just a little warmer. Like, you go 4 hours, you go 4 hours west and you're in the mountains. You go 3 hours east and you're at the beach, and right there in the middle, it's trees and lakes, and then you still have the benefits of a city. Don't get me wrong. I really did enjoy that area, but where I lived at in South Dakota in Yankton, I love that little city. 15,000 people. We always told recruits, hey, we got one of everything. We don't have two of anything. We got one McDonald's and we got one Burger King and one Dairy Queen and everything like that. But that was a really nice spot. Worthington here where I'm at now, we're just kind of getting settled in, but it's about similar. It's about 15,000 people and it's got everything you need. And that's all I really, I don't need a ton. I don't think it's nice to have more than one grocery store. Because I've lived in some small towns that coach in junior college basketball, 2,000 people in West Texas. We're in the middle of nowhere. And then northern Minnesota, it's an hour to a Walmart, but it's kind of nice where, I like these kind of mid-sized towns, and Worthington supports programs from what I've kind of gained. I mean, our women finished second in the country last year, and so they get support, and the men weren't quite as good. So I'm hopeful that if, we can be competitive and win some games, we'll have a good crowd here. And when communities support, that makes it a lot more fun.
Oh, no doubt about it. Absolutely. You've done a really good job, a very detailed job of telling us about your journey up to this point. Um, Tell us about your facility. What's your gym like?
Yeah, I think when I was debating taking this job, I talked to another coach in the league that I've known for a while. And I kind of told him, and because it was about a week debate on really what to do. And there's 15 teams in Minnesota, and there's one in Wisconsin I count in, and there's 13 of us that have our own gyms. And I think I went from the worst gym in the league to the best. Our facility here, our gym is unbelievable. There's a couple other that have an overall better facility, but I don't think they have a better gym than us. I mean, how many junior colleges have video boards and a video board on one side and the full scoreboard on the other with who's in the game and you know, we have we don't have just a single camera that swings back and forth. There's 4 cameras in our gym that we have somebody sit up high and they move things around. So it's like a TV presentation on YouTube, and that's not very common at any level that's below Division 1, Division 2. I mean, less for a Division 3 junior college. We last year we didn't have any shooting machines. Now I've got 2. And so it's just nice to have some of those things that the kids really like. I mean, last year we took vans. This year we've got, a nice 25 passenger bus that's, decaled out on the side. So I think our facility is right up there with, higher level junior colleges. And, I've coached at 4-year schools that have much less than we have. So it changes the message to the kids a little bit, when you have the worst gym in the league, it's, hey, we don't have nothing. We got to win out regardless. So changes that message a little bit, but it sure is nice having some nice things.
That's great. Yeah, I as an ex junior college player, I know exactly what that means. Exactly. So, what enticed you? What were the top 3 things, or really not even that? I mean, just what enticed you to take the job at Minnesota West?
Yeah, so them calling me was a big one. I've got applied for a lot of jobs, but I can't say there's been many times where you're being the one, they're seeking you out, not the other way around, and you're going through the interview process. They didn't even make me apply or interview or anything here. They said, "You're our guy. Give us we'll give you a couple days to talk it over with your family and figure it out." So, that was a big one. My family situation was a big one for us too, just coming down closer to my family or my wife's family. We like I said, we've been married a year. Well, 13 days before we got married, my father-in-law passed. And so it wasn't easy. Then we'd already decided to move. So then she moves away from her mother for the first time. And so that played a big part, was getting her closer to her family. And then they're so far the administration and everybody else has been just great trying to help settle me in. In the Minnesota Junior College League, we don't make enough as just coaching basketball to make ends meet. So they've been I think they've done a great job so far with me. I work in the library a couple hours a week, for an hourly pay, and I can't say it's very difficult. And once the season starts, I sit there and watch film just like I would in my office. I coach the women's golf team here, which I love golf, and that's not a terribly difficult position. So in Minnesota system, it's kind of what else can you do outside of coaching basketball to kind of make ends meet. And so just having the administration support like that, to support us, and they're coming off a couple bad seasons here in a row, and I've got a great group of kids so far. They're super respectful, so it's nice to do that. But yeah, just kind of those things is being wanted, that counts for a lot, I guess. For me, I'm not used to that. I'm used to chasing jobs and being excited when you get it and you take it within 6 seconds because that's the job you wanted. So to hey, here's the job, you take the long weekend and make your decision. That was pretty cool for me. I've never really had that.
Well, congratulations, because that's a rarity in our line of work. That's
Right.
great. That really means more in I know the dollar bill still reigns king, but when you're wanted somewhere and they aggressively pursue you, I think that's worth a lot.
100%. No, it was a big deal for me for them to, and then I love my old school at Vermillion, but they didn't quite make that same effort to keep me as Minnesota West did to lure me there. So, at the end of the day, that probably pushed it over the end is when, they're like, hey, this is what we can do for you, and there's not much more to it. But then this other school is like, hey, we're doing all we can to bring you here, and yeah, it made too much sense. And again, the facilities are upgrade, the budget's an upgrade,
Right.
just things like that. The travel's an upgrade. It all just made sense in the end.
Yeah, we played Vermilion when I was in Ironwood. Do they still have that the funky side of the gym?
Yes, it was. And I mean, last year was the first time because I finally convinced him. Our athletic director and I were both new, and it was the first time ever. We kept the bleachers pushed in a little farther because I wasn't going to sit on the bleachers. I'm like, we put some metal chairs down at the very least, so I don't have to sit in the crowd. But yeah, it's that. I mean, that thing you could probably pack 150 people in there max. And I look at our gym here, and our smallest side's bigger than that one is. And to have multiple locker rooms, and yeah, I guess the only downgrade is that their weight room. They have a fantastic weight room up there at Vermilion, where ours is. We have the weights, but that's about it. So that was the one downside, I guess, was that weight room. But as a basketball coach, we'll figure that one out.
Right. I know only people who have played or coached in that level outside of people who played at that level in baseball can really appreciate the movie Bull Durham.
Yeah. Oh, that's why I like North Carolina Central, our baseball team at the time. That was cool. That was their stadium at North Carolina Central, was the Bull Durham Stadium. They've shut baseball down since, and it's a little sad. But you walk up to a baseball game there, and you're like, God, I see the movie. Weirdest thing in the world when you walk into a place like that is when you could see the movie.
Right.
But yeah, it Vermilion is, I mean, that's the end of the road up there. And I got to play him this year, so I wish him well. 27 games out of the year. I don't wish him
Right.
well the one I got to play him, but yeah, I brought 3 kids with me down here, and I'm still great friends with the athletic director up there. And we talk twice a week, and he's like, "Oh yeah, I'm putting all the sophomores that know you real well right behind your bench." And I was like, I love it. I can't wait. Let them come at me a little bit.
Did you ever see anybody hit the bull and get a free steak like in the movie?
No, no, they moved it to the new stadium, and I went to a couple games because their new stadium is gorgeous there in Durham. I mean, it is beautiful. It's got to be one of the best minor league stadiums in the country. And they've got it out in left field because it's the Bull, and then there's a restaurant right behind it because our guys love to eat at that restaurant for whatever reason. Over Christmas break, that was their favorite spot. But I never saw anybody hit that Bull.
That's good stuff. So looking back at your journey, everywhere you've been, both high school and at the collegiate level, who would you say is your number one mentor? Who's the coach besides your father, who you would go to with really difficult questions? And I know this because I had Bill Axe and Coach Kroll up here in Northwest Ohio, who I could go to and know that it was strictly between us. So when you have those questions that you don't feel comfortable going to it with other people who might just simply be one step above an acquaintance, who's your guy?
Yeah, I got a couple, but I guess at the end, like Joey James, his name. He's currently the top assistant down at Florida Tech. So he was the top assistant at South Dakota when I was a GA. He actually was the interim head coach there for a year. Then I believe he had 6 years as the head coach at Concordia St. Paul, Division II in Minnesota. Joey and I kind of formed a bond when I moved to Vermilion. I didn't know anybody. And his wife and kids had just moved to Florida because she had just become nurse, anesthetist, or whatever you call that, making good money, but the only job she could find was in Florida at the time. And so I always call him that was Bachelor Joey time. So him and I kind of formed a bond because I didn't have anybody and he didn't have anybody. And, I was technically still a student, just doing on work study money and barely surviving and eating every night. And, these are the days of, I had no cable, no internet, my little house, if you want to call it that. It was this rundown, not a nice place. And so, he'd have me over to eat 2 or 3 times a week. And, it was nice to get to know somebody that way. And so, Him and I still talk all the time, 2 to 3 times a week. There's a couple other guys. Isaac Amity, he was the coach at Clarendon when I worked for him. He was an assistant at Louisiana Monroe for a year. And then a guy he recruited me out of high school. I told him no. I don't know why he still loves me the way he does, but Matt Johnson's up at Bay College up there in the UP. Matt's been great for me, especially me getting a head job. There's not a lot of guys that kind of like, hey man, what's the rules? Because he's the athletic director there as well. Like, am I allowed to do this? And he was always willing to answer the phone call. So yeah, I'd say Joey's probably number one, but those other guys have been, I mean, if I have any question or I just need to vent about something, they're great about it.
That's great. Yeah, you've got to have guys like that, especially as a head coach. So
Oh, you feel isolated as a head coach. You don't realize that as the assistant, how isolated you can feel sometimes.
in that's something amongst a lot of things that you and I have in common, that people who don't move a lot to pursue jobs, I don't think they really ever think about it. But every time you move to somewhere where no one's ever heard of you before, it is a very isolating
Oh,
experience.
it's wild. I moved from, and I've worked for different. I always think about it. I go back and forth, and it's kind of a little. I'm nervous to take an assistant job if I ever have to. I get a boss I really love, and then one I'm not so fond of. Every other one, and my next one's going to be a not so fond of one. I'm afraid, because I've moved across the country some places, and I moved to North Carolina because they told me I needed to be there on July 1st, and it's July 4th weekend, and all the coaches are gone, and don't know anybody within, and I'm from I don't know anybody within 10 hours.
Right.
And it's kind of survive on your own and things like that. But then I moved to Tennessee and Chad Klein's down there, and I mean I'm staying in his basement. And so like I said earlier, you take some things from everybody, and that's one thing I've always said. With my staffs is, it can be hard to find a place to live when you move somewhere you've never been and you're not making a lot of money. I was like, I got an extra bed, sleep on my bed, man. Like,
Right.
we'll figure this out for you. Try to take care of people the best you can. Yeah, like I said, that's something I've learned is, some coaches are going to be like, hey, figure this out. You took this job, figure it out on your own. And some are like, we'll help you make that fine, those connections here in town. So, yeah, when you move across the country, it's, you're like, where am I right now? And you don't even know where the grocery store's at. And
Right.
you move
Right.
to a big
Yeah.
city and you can't get down the road without your GPS. And yeah, it gets interesting real quick.
Yeah. I've had two athletic directors that my wife and I have moved all over the place to chasing a basketball around. We've had two athletic directors who went out of their way to help us find somewhere to live, and because, like you said, you don't even know sometimes when you're looking at a house if it's in the
Right.
a violent part
The
of town.
bad part, right? Or it's just like, and that's where at least these last two jobs as a head coach, like people were great. Like, here's a realtor, and I've learned real quick, don't rely on just the athletic director. There's a lady at every school, and she may not work athletics, but there's somebody that's been at that school for 30 years that can give you the name of everybody you need to know.
Yes.
I've learned that you find that lady, and she is going to be the nicest person you ever meet, and she's going to take care of you and make sure you find somewhere to live and you know where to go.
Right. It's either, like you said, one of the ladies who's been there forever, or one of the custodians.
Oh, that's like I say in recruiting. I tell all these kids all the time when I walk into school, and first person I'm trying to find is that custodian, because
Yep.
they ain't gonna lie to me. They're gonna tell me exactly what happens there.
Yeah, I'll tell you a story about what happened. One of my favorite stories about our journey. So we were really young, and I'm from Indiana. My wife's from Indiana, and I was an assistant coach in Northern Indiana. Anyway, so I get a call from a school just north of South Bend in Michigan, and they want me to come up and interview for the head coaching job. I said, sure. Well, we couldn't work out a time where I could get there while they were in business hours. So they said, okay, I'll tell you what, you're going to come up on a Saturday morning and we'll interview you on Saturday morning. And if we like you, we'll just offer you the job. We won't make you come back for, a second or third round interview.
Right.
I said, okay, fine. So I get to the high school, and of course the front doors to the office are locked. And a gentleman comes walking out in a pair of blue jeans and a hoodie. And he says, "You must be Derek Sheridan." I said, "Yeah, yeah." He said, "Okay, well, come on in." He said, "Can I get you something to drink?" I said, "Yeah, that'd be great. Coffee would be fantastic because, it's like 8 o'clock in the morning. So that'd be great." So he said, "Okay, we can have a seat out here, and all the important people are in the interview room, and somebody will come out and get you in a minute." I said, "Oh my gosh, thank you so much," and shook his hand and sat down. And then when someone came out and got me, I walked into the room, and that gentleman who was in the blue jeans and the hoodie was sitting at the head of the table. He was the school district superintendent. And he said, "You just passed the first test. I wanted to see how you would treat a custodian."
Oh, yeah, no, that's a
I said, "Well, it's an
that's a
interesting."
heck of a test.
Yeah, right. So enough about me, but tell us about your coaching staff.
Yeah, so right now it's me and me. It's we don't make a lot of money as the head coaches, so you can imagine what we can pay our assistants. Last year was funny. I didn't have an assistant. For the all I didn't at this point 12 months ago, didn't have anybody. Guy reaches out. He was moving into town. He was from northern Minnesota. He'd coached a little high school at small schools in Minneapolis, actually. Sat down, met with him. This is mid-October. He I get COVID, so his first day of practice he had to do alone without me. And we had to be a little slow. But he turned into I love him. He just lives up there. So I've got a guy coming he's actually from Terre Haute area. I've got a couple kids of his that are out here right now, playing from an AAU ball. So hopefully we can get him out here by October 1st for the start of practice. But kind of right now, it's like I said, it's me and me. I'm running, kind of doing everything, and that's okay. I don't mind it. It definitely helps me build up the relationships with the guys when I've got to be at every single open gym and every weight and every conditioning. There's no skipping out for me as the head coach. Um, but yeah, it certainly makes a lot. Tomorrow morning we got conditioning 6:30 a.m. They've got to get up and I'll be there with them.
Right.
And so yeah, it's a lot of running, but that's kind of I guess what happens when the pay's not great and you do everything you can to bring somebody in. But yeah, so I'm excited for his name's Antonio Petty out there. He's coming out this way. I'm excited for him to get here. It'd be nice to have another set of eyes, especially.
Sure.
But I'm also somebody that I talk to myself during games, and I need somebody around me that's going to tell me, "Hey, that sounds really dumb." Like,
Right.
because sometimes you think it's really good in your head, and then you say it out loud, and you're like, "God, what in the world are we trying to do here?" So, no, I'm excited to have some help here coming up, hopefully in the next couple weeks.
Oh, good. I hope it works out for you. So, what are the cornerstones of your coaching philosophy?
Yeah, I learned early. Build relationships with kids. I'm the first one to admit to these kids I can be hard on them. I got high expectations of the way we do things, but uh, again, learning from 10 different coaches, you learn that hey, you can't really get on a kid until you build that relationship with them. So even yesterday for the opening of football, I had them all over and I grilled up 50 burgers for them and just trying to show that hey, I care about you, but more than on the floor. At the end of the day, we need to win some games, and I'm going to hold you accountable to some things. But no, building those relationships. It was a spot I thought early in my coaching career I wasn't very good at. Um, I even as the assistant, I thought I was getting on kids probably a little bit too much without them really understanding where that was coming from. So, especially as a head coach, that's something I really tried to focus on. Is hey, I'm here for you no matter what you need. But at the end of the day, if I'm going to tell you when you're wrong, and I'm going to tell you when you're right, and I'm going to tell you when I'm wrong. I'm not afraid to admit when I make a mistake, because I think that just lends a little bit more to those kids trusting you.
Well, I completely agree, 100%. So, at the junior college level where you're at, tell us about your recruiting methods and what kind of kid you really go after.
Yeah, it's a 2023. I do a lot on what was called Twitter. It's X or whatever it's called now. That's my number one recruiting tool at this point. It was again another spot I didn't think I was very skilled at 5-6 years ago was recruiting. And now I do all the recruiting for our team. I mean, all these guys were recruited personally by me. But Twitter is an amazing tool. It really allows you to evaluate kids and start building those relationships. And I mean, there's other online things as well to help find kids. Um, but I kind of took a different approach this year. Last year, I had 22 kids. I mean, I do like to have a little bit bigger of a roster because I started with 22 last year and ended with 8. eligible, healthy kids last year for every reason you can think of. I was down to 8. But I thought, I mean, I didn't have a point guard. That never helps anything. I learned that the hard way in year one. Is so I probably over recruited that position a little bit this year. But I purposely got old this year. For a junior college, I've got 6 kids that are over 21 years old. I have a 26-year-old. I struggle to call him a kid. 26-year-old grown man who's got a master's degree, but doesn't have you know, a 2-year degree and wants to play basketball. So in my locker room every day, I know there's grown men in that locker room now. Because 18-year-old kids, I mean, we were all 18 at some point and made dumb decisions. Um, I overemphasize getting old this year, and I've had coaches tell me that for years: be old, be the oldest team you can be old, be mature. And that's great on the basketball floor, but I think I did it more for the fact in the locker room that I needed my voice to carry when I wasn't there. And last year I didn't have that. My best player was my strongest voice, and he has no business being the strongest voice in the locker room. He's a very talented kid. He's gonna have a really successful 4-year career. But I needed somebody that when he was stepped out of line, I needed somebody to put him back in, and didn't have that. So I really focused on trying to get that because I think that'll help me in the long run. You know, keep kids engaged and keep them where they need to be. You're on mute.
So looking at your the kids you have now, what type of offense, defense, pace of play, those type of things do you think are going to be the best fit for your current team?
Yeah, we don't play at a terribly fast pace. I'm a defensive first coach. We were number one in the conference last year in points per possession defensively because I'm a big analytics guy. I don't think it's I always tell kids analytics is a chapter in the book. It's not the whole book. But I definitely see you need to use it. So we track points per possession pretty tightly. We were number one in the conference out of all 16 teams last year. And some of that's how the way I've come up in my coaching, which is funny because in high school when I was playing, I didn't guard anybody. But as I've developed as a coach and worked under some really good defensive coaches, it's kind of the identity that I always wanted to do. So I'm a big pack line guy, especially at the junior college level. I think that works well. Um, so I let them run offensively. I don't run a ton of sets. Um, it's a more of a 5-out motion. Now I've got a couple. My main offense is a 5-out pass and cut motion, but we also got some ball screen stuff. I like to change it, just depending on what the defense is giving me. On the other side, we'll be pretty quick if it's not working within the first couple minutes. We'll switch to the other one because they may struggle to guard those ball screens, or they may struggle to guard our pass and cut stuff. But no, I try not to micromanage. Kids, they don't want to be told. I don't think they want 90 sets and to be told what to do every single time they play. But I also learned, you know, being a head coach is as an assistant, I always called defense, and then my head coach always called offense. And my assistant last year, I love him to death. He's a great people person, but basketball and the offensive side wasn't his forte. I'd rather call out defense than offense at the end of the day if it's just going to be me making those calls. And again, at this level, because we have so little money to pay assistants, it's often just going to be me. And so I kind of came to that determination. I'd rather call our defensive coverages out and let them play on offense. Um, yeah, that's it. I had about 14 sets in, I think, which is probably pretty low compared to most people. But I think that'll work again. I might have to get a little more creative. I think I'm much deeper this year than I was last year, but I'm not sure I've got that high end 17 and 8 guy that I could just, hey, CJ, go make a play for you or somebody else, and the defense is, tuned into him. And I mean, he's a good player. He's gonna have a really nice career at D3 in Wisconsin. But I don't know if I've got that, so I might have to be a little bit more micromanaging on the offensive end. But we'll see. We're just starting to get that offense installed, the pass and cut, and kids learning where hey, you do have to move, or we need to pass the ball. You can't just sit there and dribble it 4,000 times. Told the kid the other day in open gym that he was giving that ball a headache. He needed to get off of it a little bit. So I think it'll work for us. I'm never one that thinks I've got it all right. If I need to make an adjustment and it's not working for us, I'm more than happy to pull the plug on something and start over. Um, that's the nice part about college, I guess, is you kind of recruit to your style a little bit more. Where at the high school level, you get the cards you're dealt and you got to kind of move around them. So But I think it'll work. I think if we pass and cut and share the ball, I mean, that's a fun way to play and everybody gets their hands on it. And that gets you more engaged on the defensive end. I've learned is, a kid that stands in the corner and never gets the ball, he don't want to guard. He don't want to rebound. He don't want to do any of that. So I try to play, if they get rebounds and get stops, go run. If not, we'll slow it down and we'll make teams work defensively because it's hard to stay disciplined for 40 minutes and you're burning 20 seconds off the clock every time. That's hard to do. And so you can wear teams down at the end of the day.
Where did you get your 5 out?
So the last coach I worked for at Mount Marty, he had won a national title, a Division II junior college national title with it. And so I kind of picked it up for him, and I've made some adjustments myself to it that I like. It's kind of dribble drivey, but it's not. All we're trying to do is pass cut. Plus somebody overplays you back cut. We're just trying to create double gaps and things. It was my third year there. We had a couple kids going eligible, unfortunately, at the semester, but we went from unranked to top 10 in the country at the NAI level, averaging 106 points a night. Now we could put a lineup out there that had 4 shooters, and then our 5-man at 6'5" was not a 5, he was a 3, but rebounded like a 5. So you could put a lineup out there. We weren't guarding anybody either. Don't get me wrong. I mean, we were scoring 1.29 points per possession, which I've never seen before, but we were giving up 1.28. So I mean, we were in shootouts, but we took care of the ball. I mean, we went a 45-minute game, overtime game, and turned the ball over twice.
Wow.
So we took care of the ball. And we had a kid make 100 threes in a year, and a different kid shoot 47% from 3, make it 60. I actually had one of those guys was here at my house this weekend that played on that team. We were looking up. I think we made 200 and some threes that year. I mean, we were an offensive juggernaut. So I've kind of taken what that was, and I made my own little twists and changes to it to fit my guys and the way I like to do it. But overall, it's pretty much the same. And, my other ones are 5-out ball screens, basically, which is just your standard continuity. Big comes up, catches it, back cut, throw it over in a ball screen, and let's go play. So, yeah, I think kids like to do that and sometimes that motion, they don't want to move the ball. Well, then I'll call my ball screen stuff where, yeah, you're going to move the ball. It kind of forces them to, without calling 85 sets.
Right. So you've got your prototypical euphoric team. I mean, this is the team you've always wanted. Every piece is there. What style do you teach? What offense do you play, and what defense do you play?
Yeah, I think we're pretty similar to what I would do now. Like I look back to last year, I was pretty close. I had to play 2 bigs more often than I probably would have liked. And then of course I got a kid he's with me now here. He's 6'8" and averaging 11 and 7 and 2 blocks and shooting 35%. He breaks his foot 4 minutes into the conference season. That doesn't help. So we were probably a little smaller and I was like, but my 4-man average, I mean, he's going to play at Dallas Christian this year. He was 6'3" and averaged 14 rebounds a game, 7 offensive boards a game. So it kind of changed the way I wanted to play. I think we'll be a little closer this year where I'd like to have a stretch 4 guy, pass for point guard. It's nice to have shot blockers. I've got 2 of them this year. I think can really handle that. Because that helps defensively. It takes so much pressure off your guards. I want to pressure the ball a little more than we did probably last year. But when your shot blocker goes out, that kind of changes things. You need to be a little bit more off. But I'm not a huge press guy. I'll press when I need to, but which I know is very popular at the junior college level is to press and run. And I tell kids, hey, I play a 4-year style basketball. I'm going to get you ready to play the 4-year style. Cause I mean, there's 4 years out there that run and press and do all that stuff. But 95% of the time when you turn on a NCAA, any division or an NAI tournament in March, those teams aren't pressing. They aren't, they're playing a half court style and the game grinds to a halt. And, I like to play that way right away. I guess it's, maybe a little quicker than what some of those games turn into, but if we're playing that style a year when it happens in March, we're ready for it, where other teams may not be.
Right. That's a great answer. Great answer. Walk us through your typical practice.
Yeah, so I'm big. We warm up with layup lines. I'm big on 2 feet, so we do a lot of. I think the kids are already sick of me saying it. 2 feet, 2 feet, 2 feet. I've done a lot of research over the last couple of years on the finishing aspect of in traffic. Over the last 6 years, I think on 1 foot in traffic, you finish at 55% off 2 feet. You finish at 64, and off 2 feet with a shot fake, you finish at 74. So we really focus on that. I try to get them warmed up. then we go guards and bigs. I'm 5'8", but I grew up coaching bigs. Kind of everybody laughs about it, but I love coaching bigs. I think they're so much more difficult than guards, just with the footwork and everything around that post. And I don't even really play with a true post, but those kids end up down there on a rebound, anything like that. They need a post move. I like to let them get up and down a little bit, kind of to get their legs loose. We kind of do this 11-man break, just continuous 3-on-2 a lot. And then we get into our defensive stuff. I know there's on Twitter, especially, there's been a lot of debate over shell drill lately. But I love the shell drill. I start 1-on-1 into 2-on-2, 3-on-3, 4-on-4, and build it up to 5-on-5. We do a lot of this drill called we call it the diamond drill. Teaching jump into the ball, kind of turns the shell on its head a little bit, and back screen, down screen. Can you jump through it? Can you stay away? Can you stay home, get through it, and then fire up through that down screen? We can turn it with flares and things like that too. So a lot of that. Then we kind of go into a little offense, and then whether it's a controlled scrimmage, I do a lot of down, back, down, or 3 possessions. Do a lot of that stuff, just kind of control it a little bit. But we'll do half court possessions, and that's kind of how we end the day. But yeah, especially early on, it's a lot of defense because that's what we're going to harp on. That's what we're going to hang our hat on at the end of the day. Is we just got to be able to guard somebody. So that first week, especially, it's going to put me to a test when our first scrimmage days are 6 days after practice starts, and we aren't going to guard anybody at that thing, and I'm going to have to just sit there and remember they ain't ready yet. That's okay. We'll have time. But no, I like to put that defensive stuff kind of before the offensive thing. I think most kids look forward to the offensive side probably more than the defensive side. So if I kind of hang that apple in front of their mouth there and give them something to think about, hey, okay, but I got to be focused, because if we're not focused during the defensive stuff, coach ain't going to let us get to the offensive stuff. We're going to get the defensive stuff right first.
Yeah, exactly. So you were talking about guarding screeners. How do you teach your kids when they're chasing a cutter? Do you teach them to go over the top of the screen, piggyback it? What's your philosophy there?
For the down screens, I'm an easy way guy. If it's a shooter, I mean, if he's a dead shooter, then we got to chase. But the guy that guarding the screener, I teach a 2-way go. You got to step off. You got to be able to see both. But then I let that guy, most of the time, he'll make the decision on what's best for him. What he thinks. For most kids, that turns into them. We call it a whip, just going underneath that screen in between the screener and your own teammate. But that's why we drill it so much, because obviously if you try to do that and the guy guarding the screener doesn't jump to the ball, you're just going to double screen him.
Right.
And so we teach that a ton. But no, I tell them all the time, take the easy way. But if you're guarding a shooter, you probably need to chase him and make that thing curl, because we've got that curl knocked down anyways. My defense is probably a little different because I front the post.
Mm-hmm.
And I trap from the baseline side. I don't trap from the top of the ball side. I've only ever seen 2 teams do it. I can't remember who it was. About 3 years ago, there was a Division I team doing it. And so it's a little different than what most teams do. Is I front it with everybody, and if it gets in there, like I said, we trap from the bottom, and which is not very. I don't see that very often, and I think it's hard to prepare for, because it's hard to simulate in practice. Not a lot of people do it.
Right. I think UVA does that.
Yeah, they do that. Yep, that's who it was. They like to front, and if you get caught, if a big gets caught behind, they're jumping to the middle and letting you have the drop step. And I think last year we took 4 or 5 charges because that kid thinks he's got a drop step, and all of a sudden the guard's standing right there getting plowed over.
Right. Yeah, I really like that stuff. So, what are your biggest keys in scouting?
That's how I came up when I was the GA at South Dakota. That was my really only job. I wrote every single scouting report. I made every single video scouting report. Really, the only thing I didn't do was present it. It was my job to present it to the coaches and then let them present. So it's probably my favorite thing. I love watching film. I keep it a lot simpler at this level, obviously, than the Division I, where, I mean, it's 2 guys, every guy's getting a half a page basically at that level. Here, I try to keep it simple. We kind of have a couple designations, obviously your shooter, but I tell kids, just because he's a shooter, that's what gets him on the floor. That doesn't mean he can't dribble. And a driver doesn't mean that he can't shoot. And then we have a designation, we call it poison. You don't go near poison, you stay away.
Right.
It's kind of one of those things we just, we upset number 5 team in the country last year, and they had 2 guys that couldn't shoot. We poisoned off, and they struggled to score. And I think that was a big time adjustment that we made. So I try to look at that. I try to be the most prepared coach out there, and knowing what they're going to do. I love playing Gogibic. Um, he's been doing it a long time, and he runs a 1-4 set. And if the ball goes here, this happens. If the ball goes here, this happens. And if the ball goes here, this happens. It's great because it's the easiest scout in the world. Once you figure it out, it's easy. You don't even need the play calls. But I'm that guy that likes to shut the door, and I'll put headphones in or turn the TV up real loud, trying to get every single little play call I can get. But yeah, we walk through everything, and I've actually kind of moved into, some coaches like to do a scout team that runs everything. I like to have my first team guys run their stuff too at the second team, because I kind of think that if you run it yourself, you now understand what they're trying to do to you. But yeah, we're big on it. I watch probably more film than any other junior college at least my level that I know of. I mean, we're in our league, we're a Saturday, Wednesday league. So on Monday, we watch ourselves. On Tuesday, we watch our Wednesday opponent. On Thursday, we watch ourselves. And on Friday, we watch our Saturday opponent. And, I try not, Coach Boots at South Dakota said, listen, don't ever put more than 20 minutes on them because you'll lose their focus. But I maximize those 20 minutes.
Sure. Who is the coach at Ironwood now?
Dennis. Oh, what's Dennis's last name?
Mackey?
Is that his last? God, I coached against him twice last year. I should know this.
It's not Rousseau, is it?
No, it's now you got me looking it up because I'm curious. I can't remember who it is, and it's going to drive me nuts if I don't think about it. Yeah, it's Dennis Mackey. Yep, Mackey's right. Yep.
He was the girls'
coach. He runs the same offense.
Good guy.
Oh, he's a great guy. In between games, after him and I set the world back 20 years when it was 6-2 at the 10-minute mark. Neither one of us could make a basket at their place last year. And him and I sat down for dinner later that night and went like, hey, if either one of us can make a basket, we win by 20. But we decided to have a close game in the high 40s, low 50s because neither one of us could score for 10 minutes.
Who's the best coach, whether it be as a head coach or an assistant coach, who you've seen played against?
At this level in our conference, I think it's Jim Russell up at he's at Central Lakes. He's won a couple national titles, and Russ recruited me out of high school a little bit too, and he's been great for me in this league. And he likes to give me a hard time because I played him twice really close last year because our style just kind of I make it hard on him. So but he's the way he makes adjustments, and he's been doing it for 20 some years, and he's 20 wins every year. That guy's unbelievable in this league, and he's so hard to prepare for. You got to watch extra film, and he gets big sitting in there. They're 6'8" at our level. 6'8's almost unheard of, and he'll have 2 or 3 of them that he just throws out there and runs them. But yeah, for me, since I've become a head coach in this league, Jim Russell's one of the best. And if Jim Russell's coaching at, if he's not comfortable at Central Lakes College in Brainerd, Minnesota, and he's coaching at a higher level, a lot of people know that name. I'll put him up there with almost anybody in the country. He's happy where he's at, and he's made his money, and he makes a living, and he wins a lot of games at this level.
Good combination. So going back to the defensive side of the ball, what offensive actions do you guys prepare for the most that worries you the most with your defense?
Yeah, we prepare a lot for ball screens because everybody sets them now. We've got a couple different ways to guard them. I kind of do the NBA thing where colors matter. So if you hear a color, what the call is. I think the hardest one for us last year, especially, and we had to make some adjustments. And again, we say go Gibic because they had a kid at the 4 that could really shoot that thing. Is we had to change how we guarded ball screens all year with him. He made it tough. Is when those kids can really pick and shoot 40% from 3, that to me makes it tough. Cross screens, guards to bigs have been have caused us a little trouble. Getting them guards to. You've got to stay. I know he's got a foot on you, but you've really got to stay home here and get your big across. So I think those are some of the things that have really given us some trouble. Otherwise, we were the best defensive team. I don't mean to brag it up, but I thought we did a pretty good job with a lot of actions last year. Where we get in the most trouble is transition. We weren't a great transition defensive team last year, so I've got to get a little bit better working with that. But yeah, those pick and pop fours, or we played a team last year that had a pick and pop four, and then they would screen. They would set the flare screen for him, and now you're helping, and a Big's diving, and those situations I think make it pretty tough.
So, if you could have 1 week to watch any Division One basketball coach and his team practice, who would it be?
Oh, and it's because he plays a style and he doesn't quite do it as much. Shaka Smart at Marquette. I've always struggled personally with teams that press me a lot. And part of it last year was we didn't have a point guard. But I want to learn. I want to go watch and see what they do to beat themselves every day. Because that they're going to be a day to watch when that scout team. And I used to love it as the assistant running the scout team. When my scout team would beat that first team that day, it was the greatest thing in the world. Because I'm the first one talking to the first teamers, like I'm out there doing something. But I think Shaka does heck. I mean, he was national coach of the year last year. Obviously, he's a heck of a coach. But I think really watching him and trying to learn some of the things that he does, that to me would be interesting. And then just because he does a lot defensively of what I do, I mean, we mentioned it earlier as UVA, with Bennett. I think I do a pretty good job defensively, and I got nothing on him. But because our systems are so similar defensively, I'm sure sitting there for a week watching him, I could pick up a few things that could make us a lot better on that end.
Well, those are certainly two great coaches. Great answer. All right, here we go. This is my last question, and then we've got a couple questions from the people in the audience. We'll get to your best advice to an aspiring young coach.
Probably network. When I was younger, I was a little afraid to talk to people, and you don't want to put yourself out there because that's not who my personality is. But it's amazing the amount of jobs you get, not because of what you know, but who you know. Um, I think the most I can go down my list. I get the South Dakota job because I'm working camp. I made that connection myself. It was just a camp one, but I go to Jamestown. It was because somebody I knew him. You go to Louisiana, it's because somebody I knew him. You go to Clarendon, Texas, same deal. You get a Division I job because a Division I coach that you've been good to and he's been good to you says, "Hey, I know this guy. I'll get you this job." There hasn't been many jobs I've gotten where it was straight off an interview. I think the only one was probably my last job, and even then, I worked summer camps for the guy that was the head coach there for 25 years. He probably made a call for me at the end of the day. And so I think that's a big one is just don't be afraid to reach out to people. I know people that have gotten MBA jobs and scouting jobs off letter writing. It's something I want to get better at. I've got to get better at. And I mean, they just make connections from people that they do that way. I mean, even Twitter is an amazing thing. I've made more coaching friends that I've never even met face to face yet, but they're great friends to me now because we just got to know each other, especially over that pandemic where we was just who could you get to know, and you're sitting in your basement bored and you can't be around your guys. But then the world's changing a little bit. I think it's probably a little easier on some young guys now because I mean, especially with these Division Ones, it's not necessarily that they're getting the jobs. With Division Ones having 5 and 6 assistants and ops and all these other positions, it's opened up some lower level jobs. Um, you know, you're probably going to have to make really bad money for a while. And if you can my first job paid 3,000, my second job paid 5,000. I moved across the country for a $5,000 job because I wanted to coach. I substitute taught every single day and then went right to the office. I was gone from 6 a.m. till 10 p.m. every single day, but you can't be afraid to work. And I think there's more opportunities now because these Division Ones have gotten more opportunities. So there's guys that normally would have some of those $10,000, $12,000 jobs that they can the young guys can get their hands on. But yeah, getting after it and working and then just making those connections because at the end of the day, that's what it's really all about.
Okay, great. Well, I'm going to go here to some questions. How much time do you devote in practice to film?
Like I said, it's almost an everyday thing for us, especially once the season really gets kicked in. It's 20 to 30 minutes almost every day. And I'm still on the floor because I back it way down. Once February hits, it's hey, come get your shots in. Let's get up and down. Let's prep a little bit, and then we're done. My practice is about an hour 15 once the season's kind of, once you're in the heart of conference season. I'm not trying to wear guys out like that by any means, but I'll film practice. uh there there was I had a coach that one time told me, and I mess up this quote about every other time I say it, but he said, your eyes indict, the stats accuse, or excuse me, the eyes accuse, the stats, I told you I messed up, eyes accuse, the stats indict, and the film convicts. Because the film don't lie, it don't care who you are, it don't care what your mom thinks of you, it never lies. And so I'm a big believer that if you just if you show kids film, they can learn from it, and make them know it's just personal. I'm not trying to attack you in any way, and just because I'm talking to John today doesn't mean, Jordan, this doesn't apply to you because you'd made the same mistake. Or hey, we've done this right. I try to be about 50-50, like, hey, this is really good defensive rotation. Or hey, we missed this defensive rotation, or hey, we can play off 2 feet here. If we play off two, you may not have your shot, but you can pivot out, make this pass. So I really do think film is the most valuable thing we can show kids, because they really don't see it until they see it.
Absolutely. That's yeah. One of my coaches told me one time, there's two things in life that don't lie: film and a bullet.
That's about, yes. I like that one too. Might use that one this year.
Yeah. Another question here: how do you defend on ball screens?
So we've got, like I said, we got a couple different ways. My main one is the NBA drop coverage. I use analytics. So if I can force a team into a bunch of mid-range jump shots, it's beat me before, don't get me wrong, but I think over the course of a 30-game season, it's going to work out. So a lot of times I send my guards over the top, and then my big is just, he's dropping, is trying to keep that guy in front until that guard can get back. But we've got a couple of other, that's only with my bigs. Anything guard to guard, we switch. And I've switched 1 through 5. I've switched only 1 and 2. Even if it's a 4-5 screen, I let them switch. But we do a couple other ways. When we got a shooter, we call it a pink, because we push up and go under, so that big gets his chest on their shoulder, and our guard goes up and under, especially when their guards don't shoot it real well. I'll ice ball screen sometimes, but that almost getting too much when you're trying to ice kids. I try to keep it as simple as I can. That's why I like that NBA drop cover. Is I think kids can really pick that out. I'm not big on trapping or hard hedging, things like that. I just think it throws your rotations off. Where I'm trying to just stay solid in gaps and make guys shoot over the top of us.
Yeah, great answer, Coach. Guys in the audience, do you have any other questions?
Hey, how you doing? Steve Collum from Chicago. How you doing? I was the question actually was, what do you do for playing on ball in practice? Like, I know usually a lot of guys do zigzag and things of that nature. What's some things you like to do to practice on ball defense?
Yeah, so I start first one-on-one with things, and it starts with the jab step for me. When a guy jabs at you, I teach take steps back, not to the sides. As soon as you go to the side, that's a straight line to the rim. So I teach going back. So I start there. And yes, I use the zigzag. My favorite drill for this type of thing is, we call it the Vegas drill, and it's extremely difficult. So offensive player gets the ball at half court, and their only goal is to get to the baseline as quick as possible. Your job as the defensive player is to get them to counter once. It's big. I don't teach the old school keep sliding. As soon as you're beat, you got to turn your hips and run and be into the spot. And so I love this Vegas drill thing where, yeah, you check the ball in at half court, and your guy's trying to get to the baseline, and he's got corner to corner. He's got the whole entire baseline. He's trying to go corner to corner in a straight line. And your job as the defender is, you are just trying to make him counter once. I've had a couple kids that had such a good rep, they made him counter twice, and that's over. That's really good. But in my pack line defense, because your help should be there, if you can make a kid counter once, then you've done your job because the help should be there. If you make him counter and he beats you still, that's probably not your fault anymore as the on-ball defender. It's more your teammate that's supposed to be in that gap.
Thanks, Coach.
Absolutely.
Yeah, thank you for your question, Coach. Well, guys, I think we've had Coach on here for over an hour, and Coach Tharp, I sure appreciate you spending time here to talk to us tonight, and we'll be following you. I think Coach has got one more question.
Hey, can I get your? Well, I have your information, Mr. Sheridan. Can I get your information, Coach? I'm a high school coach in Chicago, so I might have some players for you or some.
Always players in Chicago. I've learned that over the time.
Okay.
I see your number, Coach. I'll shoot you a text here tonight.
Okay, thanks. Appreciate it.
Yes, sir.
All right.
Great questions, Coach, and thank you for joining us tonight. What part of Chicago?
Absolutely.
Well, my school I coach at is on the south side of Chicago.
Oh, I used to coach in Hammond, Indiana.
Oh, okay, yeah. I frequent. We play out there a lot, actually.
Are you a White Sox fan?
Well, I'm from the other side of town, so I'm a Cubs fan.
Oh, gosh.
That's okay. I'm a Twins fan, so good. I like that answer better. I don't like the White Sox.
You like them a lot this year, that's for sure.
Yeah. I grew up in Minnesota, actually, though.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, hey, Coach, thank you so much for your time.
I got to call you guys back. My daughter hurt herself, sorry.
No problem. No problem. Coach Tharp, thank you so much for your time. And once I get this back from production, I'll shoot you off a copy, okay?
Awesome. I appreciate it. It's been great.
Yeah, we'll stay in touch. And
absolutely.
Again, thank you so much for your time. I think maybe I had more fun than you did, but
no, I appreciate it. This was awesome.
Okay, guys. Hey, thank you so much, Coach Tharp, and best of luck to you this year.
Appreciate it.
Yep, stay in touch.
All right.
Take care.
All right, bye.